President Trump said at one point today that he would not use force to obtain Greenland, although, of course, he has threatened to do so other times before. He did say he still wants America to control it. He didn't move on that at all. He talked about maybe the U.S. paying for it. Would you be okay with that if the U.S. gets Greenland but pays for it?
Well, I think that gets it wrong, to be honest. The Norwegian view, and I think it's Nordic, it's European, is that Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. And even aiming for taking land from another land inside NATO is unacceptable. And that is my position. I think Greenland has collaboration. Denmark has collaboration with the United States. There is a treaty that enables the United States to have a lot of presence. And we have a NATO approach to do more security collaboration in the Arctic. And that gives us a very broad framework to look after security and do it inside the framework, the rules and the principles that should be among allies.
So then when the President of the United States said today, if he's denied Greenland, his quote was, "We will remember," he got explicit, Mr. Prime Minister. First of all, he mentioned Greenland, I believe we counted 15 times. It was the core of his commentary. And then he was very specific about what he means about acquiring Greenland. It's very different than what you just said. I'll let him say it for himself.
All we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease.
It seems, sir, as if it's butting up against a wall. He's not changing what he's saying at all.
No, but I'm very explicit, and I find that unacceptable, you know, to say that I have to have peace of another country's land. You know, we are democracies, we are allies in NATO, we have strengthened this alliance together. We had a great NATO summit last year. I speak for Norway. You know, we do security in the north. We do it in straight collaboration with the United States. We do it in very straight collaboration with NATO. But I think the idea of declaring that, you know, I need a piece of land of another country just like that, we have to respond very clearly on that. I know now that there is a process between Secretary Rubio and the Danish Foreign Minister. They should discuss how there could be future arrangements for how the Kingdom of Denmark, with the participation of the people of Greenland, collaborate with the U.S. on Greenland. I think there are vast opportunities there. It's for these countries to decide. But simply to say that you want another country's land, I have to say, I think it is unacceptable.
So when the president says today, President Trump, that certain places in Europe are not even recognizable anymore, frankly, they're not recognizable. And we are at this moment where he is saying that he will get Greenland. Have you in your career, in your lifetime, ever seen a moment like this? And how important is this moment that we are in?
Well, it's a special moment because I think what we hear about Europe, we heard the same thing from Vice President Vance in Munich in February last year. I come from Europe. You know, Europe has its challenges. The United States has its challenges, but they are all strong democracies and they are allies in NATO, most of these countries. And we have great security to look after, and we have a very proud history of collaborating on that. So I would like to say, you know, this is message we hear out of the US administration and the political landscape it is representing. At the same time, you know, we can note that NATO countries are cooperating day by day very closely. You know, the security in the high north, we live next to Russia. We live next to the Russian submarines, the Russian nuclear arsenal. And we follow that very closely, and we do it in collaboration with the US, and that collaboration is intensifying. It's good for Norway's security, but I dare say it is very important also for US security, because we look after common security in a collective way. So, you know, we may express ourselves on things in our societies. I heard what he said about Europe. I think Europe is a much more diverse and fantastic place like that. Countries have their challenges, and leaders have to address them.
Yes.
United States is not without challenges itself.
No, certainly not. You know, the leader of Canada, Mark Carney, gave a speech that I understand he wrote himself, so every word, of course, was selected by him. He talked about a rupture in the world order. This was not a transformation, this was not transition, this is a rupture. Do you agree?
Well, I think Mark Carney made some very strong points. I think he spoke on behalf of countries who are very open in their economies. Norway is one of those. Norway has the world's second largest coastline, next after Canada, in fact. And we have benefited and contributed to this rules-based order. We are in Davos now with international business industry who thrive on doing trade. And I think, having a rules-based system where business can cooperate and trade and compete, and countries can deal and address with the contemporary big issues, how to have a safe use of artificial intelligence, deal with the climate challenge, get this armament on track again. For that, we need collaboration. And if countries step aside from that, well, I think, the rest of the countries have to take that responsibility and move forward in a pragmatic and realistic way.
We are talking, Mr. Prime Minister, about matters of war and peace and the future of what it means for Western civilization and for the world. And in that context, I have to ask you about something incredibly jarring that has come public, and that is a private text exchange with Trump that you had over the weekend. It started, I understand, with you and your colleague, the Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who began the exchange. I understand that you all texted President Trump saying, "Dear Mr. President, dear Donald," on the contact across the Atlantic, on Greenland, Gaza, Ukraine, and your tariff announcement yesterday. You know our position on these issues, but we believe we all should work to take this down and de-escalate. So much is happening around us where we need to stand together. We are proposing a call with you later today, with both of us or separately. Give us a hint of what you prefer best, Alex and Jonas. And then, Mr. Prime Minister, of course, the response comes to you. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. Mr. Prime Minister, I read that in full because it is a stunning statement. I guess, can I just start with, when you see pop up on your device, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. What, sir, went through your mind?
Well, I can verify those messages, and you read the first one, which was, on Sunday, President Stubb and I, who work closely together, we are neighbors in the north. We thought it would be a good start of this week with Davos to have a conversation with the president. We talk to him frequently, and the tone is good. And this message you read came back to me after an hour, and he actually distributed that to all other NATO leaders as well. Well, I mean, on Greenland, you heard my position. I don't need to repeat that. I find it unacceptable to take land from other countries. I believe that the big challenge we have in front of us now is Ukraine. It's a very dramatic war going on with huge ramifications. It's very bad for Ukraine, of course, but also dangerous for Europe, for the US, for world peace. That's really what we need to look into. And this Peace Prize thing, I have repeated, I've told President Trump many times that the Nobel Committee is an independent committee. It is staunchly secretive about the way it works. I am informed about the Nobel Prize alongside the rest of the world at 11 o'clock on that day in October. That's how it is. The one who won that Nobel Prize last year was actually nominated by Marco Rubio when he was a senator. So, this is how that prize is handled year after year. And, I see bigger problems in the world than world leaders wanting to get the Peace Prize. But the way that Peace Prize is being delivered is the way I just explained. And that's how it is.
the President of the United States is obsessed with this Peace Prize. He brought it up yesterday when he was getting on the plane to go to Davos. And he brought you up again, just what you just said, right? That you find out at 11 o'clock the night before of the Peace Prize. Here's what he said about you and your role in it yesterday on his way to Davos.
Don't let anyone tell you that Norway doesn't control the shots, okay? It's in Norway. I lost a lot of respect for Norway. And I believe very strongly that Norway controls the Nobel Prize.
How do you have a relationship with, deal pragmatically and diplomatically with a person who talks like that?
Well, you know, I'm Prime Minister of my country. As I say, you know, we may be a small country, but we are a proud country, and we stand for our values, we stand for our procedures, we stand for our institutions. And President Trump is right. The Nobel Peace Prize is handed out from Norway, but it is done so by a committee which is selected to do that work. And I can repeat that over and over again. I think the world knows. Alfred Nobel wrote in his will that he wanted the Norwegian Parliament to nominate that committee. And it has done so for more than a century. And that is how it is. But, you know, I think, you know, I have respect for world leaders. They are different. They have different temperaments, different priorities, different sensitivities. And if you are Prime Minister, you have to be diplomatic in the sense that you talk straight, but you're able to deal with people. And the United States is a very important ally for Norway, strong cultural, political ties. And that's my point of departure for finding good solutions and be very clear in my messages when I need to.
And as you have been, and as we have best been speaking, Mr. Prime Minister, just something just happened that I want to ask you about, and this is President Trump just posted on his own social media website something I wanted to give you a chance to hear. I think we're both hearing it in real time. He said, based on a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into February 1st. Of course, he's referring to the tariffs, right, that were going to go 10%, then up to 25% to anyone who in NATO who was against his view on Greenland. What do you think he means by a framework here?
Well, let me say these are good news because this is getting this issue on track to something. And I think that, you know, inside NATO, we should work on how NATO looks after security for the entire NATO region. And I've been working for 20 years. I was foreign minister 20 years ago, and we worked hard to say that NATO is also responsible for the areas in the high north in the Arctic. And now that is gradually happening. And the US is, of course, as an Arctic nation, like Norway, very important to this. So if the Secretary General can bring this into a track that we deal with it in NATO, that we put tariff against each other aside, very good sign. And you know that the United States talked in a respectful way with the Kingdom of Denmark, which has its elected and very respectful leaders, really pay attention to the people who live in Greenland, who have their own rights, then we may get on the right track.
All right. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm very grateful for your time tonight, and thank you so very much.
Thank you.